What if the foundation of the modern church is built on a deliberate lie? For centuries, institutional gatekeepers have buried the gospel of Mary to protect their authority. Not because it was false, but because it was dangerous. Because inside its fragments is a reality that shifts everything. A reality where power does not flow from hierarchy, but from awareness. A reality where the divine is not distant, but internal. And at the center of that reality is Mary Magdalene, not as a follower, not as a footnote, but as the one who understood what others could not. And that's where the problem begins. Because if her role is true, then everything that came after her was built on a mission. And if it was built on a mission, then it was built on control. In 1896, something resurfaced. Fragments, worn, incomplete, are partially damaged, but intact enough to reveal something that should not exist. The Gospel of Mary, a text that does not align with the structure we were taught, a text that does not reinforce authority, but dissolves it. And what makes it even more unsettling is not what it adds, but what it removes. There is no obsession with sin, no emphasis on external judgment, no demand for obedience. Instead, there is focus, awareness, inner transformation, and a voice, Mary's voice, not asking questions, but answering them. The scene is quiet, not dramatic, not chaotic, just uncertain. Jesus is gone, and for the first time, the disciples are left without direction. No voice guiding them, no presence stabilizing them, only silence, and the weight of everything they thought they understood. You would expect leadership to rise immediately. You would expect clarity, but instead, there is hesitation. Fear, a kind of internal collapse, because everything they followed was centered around one presence, and now that presence is no longer visible. And that's when it happens. Mary steps forward, not loudly, not forcefully, but with a kind of stillness that feels different. While others are searching for answers, she begins to speak as if she already has them. And that contrast is subtle, but powerful, because it reveals something immediately. She is not reacting, she is remembering. There's a difference. Reaction comes from confusion, memory comes from clarity. And what Mary begins to share is not something formed in the moment, it is something already integrated within her. She tells them not to be afraid, not to fall into grief, not to lose themselves in uncertainty. And the way she says it is not comforting, it's grounding, as if she understands something about reality that they do not. And that's when the shift happens. Because now the question is no longer, what do we do next? It becomes, how does she know this? Mary continues. And as she speaks, the space changes. You can feel it, because what she is describing is not a story. It's not memory in the way we usually understand it. It's structured, layered, precise. She begins to explain what she saw, what she was shown, and what unfolds is something far deeper than belief. She describes the soul, not as something judged, but as something navigating, moving, ascending, not physically, but through states of awareness, as if through layers of perception that most people never even realize exist. And at each level, there is resistance, not from outside forces alone, but from internal structures, doubt, fear, attachment, illusion, each one acting like a boundary, each one attempting to convince the soul that it belongs where it is, that it should stop, that it cannot go further. And as she explains this, something becomes clear. This is not religion. This is not doctrine. This is understanding, direct, experiential. And that's what creates the division, because now the others are no longer just listening. They are comparing. Comparing what they know to what she is revealing. And the gap between those two things becomes impossible to ignore. And then, the tension breaks. Peter speaks, but not with curiosity, and not with openness, with resistance, a kind of controlled disbelief. Because what Mary is presenting doesn't just add to what they know, it replaces it. He questions her, not directly attacking the content, but the possibility, the idea that Jesus would reveal something privately to her, something the others were not given. And that reaction is important, because it exposes something deeper. This is not about truth. This is about access to truth. Because if Mary received something greater, then the structure they assumed no longer holds. Authority is no longer shared equally. It is no longer assigned by position. It becomes something else entirely. Something internal, something that cannot be seen, only recognized. And Peter feels that shift. He feels the loss of certainty, the loss of control. And because if what she is saying is true, then everything changes. And for someone positioned at the center of structure, that is not easy to accept. After Peter speaks, something unexpected happens. Silence. Not rejection, not agreement, just silence. And that silence carries weight, because the others don't immediately defend Peter. But they don't fully support Mary either. They hesitate, caught between two interpretations of reality. One familiar, structured, safe, and one unfamiliar, unstable, but deeply compelling. And you can feel the tension in that moment, because this is where decisions are made, not outwardly, but internally. They are not just choosing who to believe, they are choosing how to see, and that is far more significant, because once perception shifts, everything else follows. And that silence is the space where that shift begins. Mary continues, and now she goes deeper. She begins to describe the journey itself, the movement of the soul beyond the physical world, not after death, but beyond illusion, beyond the surface layer of reality. She describes encounters, forces that question the soul, challenge it, attempt to hold it in place, and each one presents itself as authority, as if it has the right to define where the soul belongs. But the soul responds differently, not with fear, not with submission, but with recognition. It sees the illusion, it sees through the authority, and it moves beyond. And that is the key, because the soul is not escaping something external, it is transcending something internal. Misidentification, confusion, false attachment. And once those dissolve, movement becomes possible. What Mary describes is not unique. It echoes across multiple early teachings. The idea that reality is layered, that perception is filtered, that what you see is not the full structure of what exists, and within that structure, there are forces, not necessarily physical beings, but influences, patterns, systems of thought that shape how reality is interpreted. And their power is simple. They don't control what is real, they control what is seen. And as long as perception is limited, reality appears limited. But once perception expands, those limits begin to dissolve. And that is why awareness is dangerous, because it removes control at its source. Now return to the statements of Jesus. The kingdom is within you. You are God's. Placed beside Mary's teachings, they align perfectly, because they are pointing to the same structure, the same truth, that what you are is not separate from the source, not distant from the divine, but directly connected to it. And the reason this was never fully explained is because explanation leads to realization, and realization leads to independence. If something in you is starting to recognize this, not just understand it, but feel it, pause, like the video, subscribe, and comment, "I remember," because this is not something you learn, it's something you uncover. Now pause for a moment and really think about what this implies, not just intellectually, but structurally. Because if the message Mary carries is true, then it doesn't just add something to the system, it removes the need for the system entirely. A teaching where the divine exists within you, where awareness replaces authority, where truth is discovered internally, not delivered externally. That kind of message does not coexist with control, it dismantles it, quietly, completely, because control relies on distance, distance between you and truth, distance between you and the divine, distance between you and your own awareness. And once that distance collapses, the structure has nothing left to stand on. No leverage, no dependency, no reason for you to look outward for something that has always been inward. And this is where the real tension begins, because systems don't just disappear when challenged. They adapt, they evolve, they absorb what they can, and suppress what they cannot. So instead of openly rejecting teachings like Mary's, They reshape them, they simplify them, they reduce them into something manageable, something that no longer threatens the foundation. And over time, the original depth is lost, not because it was erased entirely, but because it was never allowed to expand. And that's the strategy. You don't remove the truth completely. You leave just enough of it behind. So it looks like nothing is missing, but controlling a message is only half the process. The other half is controlling the memory of the person who carried it. And because as long as the messenger remains credible, the message can always resurface. It can always be rediscovered, re-examined, re-understood. So the messenger must change, not removed, rewritten. And that's exactly what happens to Mary Magdalene. Over time, her identity begins to shift, slowly at first, subtly. She is no longer emphasized as the one who understood, no longer positioned as the one who received. Instead, a different narrative begins to form, a narrative that reframes her completely. She becomes associated with sin, with moral failure, with a past that needs redemption. And once that association is repeated enough, it becomes accepted, not questioned, not investigated, just assumed. And this is where the strategy becomes clear. Because once people see her differently, they stop listening to her differently, they stop taking her seriously. And when the messenger is no longer trusted, the message loses its weight. Even if it still exists, even if fragments of it survive, even if the truth is still there, waiting to be seen. Because perception has already been altered, and perception is everything. Now step back even further, because this is not just about Mary. This is a pattern, a repeating structure that shows up across history. Truth emerges, not loudly, not aggressively, but clearly enough to disrupt what already exists. And when it does, it creates tension, because truth does not negotiate with structure. It reveals it, and that revelation forces a response. So the structure reacts, not always by destroying the truth, but by reshaping it, containing it, absorbing the parts that can fit, and isolating the parts that cannot. And over time, what remains is something that feels whole, but isn't. Something that appears complete, but has been carefully edited. And the more time passes, the harder it becomes to detect what was removed, because people begin to assume that what exists now is all that ever existed. And that assumption is what allows the pattern to continue, again, and again, and again. But here's where it gets deeper, because even with all of that, something still remains. Something that cannot be fully erased, something that appears in different forms, across different teachings, across different texts, across different time periods, the idea of a divine spark. Not something granted to you, not something given by authority, but something inherent, something that exists within you, whether you recognize it or not. And this idea is extremely difficult to remove, because it doesn't depend on belief, it doesn't depend on structure, it doesn't depend on external validation, it depends on awareness, and awareness can always return, even after distortion, even after suppression, even after centuries of reinterpretation, because once someone begins to look inward, instead of outward, they begin to notice something subtle at first, but undeniable, a sense of presence, a sense of knowing, a sense that what they are is not limited to what they've been told, and that realization cannot be undone. And this is where everything shifts. Because up until now, this has felt like history, like analysis, like something happening outside of you. But this part is different, because now the focus turns inward, not to Mary, not to the disciples, not to the structure, but to you. Because if what she describes is real, then it doesn't stop with her. It extends, it applies, it continues, which means the same awareness she accessed exists within you, the same capacity to recognize illusion, to move beyond it, to see reality differently is not exclusive, it's available, and the only thing separating you from it is not time, not knowledge, not permission, but recognition. The moment you begin to question what you've been told, the moment you begin to observe instead of assume, the moment you begin to look inward instead of outward, something shifts, in quietly but permanently. And once that shift happens, you don't see things the same way anymore, not because the world changed, but because your perception did. Because in the end, truth doesn't disappear, it doesn't vanish, it doesn't get destroyed, it fragments, it hides, it disperses into pieces, into texts, into ideas, into patterns that seem unrelated, until you start connecting them. And when those pieces begin to come together, they reveal something that cannot be ignored, that what was removed was not false, it was uncontrollable. It could not be structured, it could not be limited, it could not be placed into a system without losing what made it powerful, and that is why it was never fully explained, why statements were preserved, but their meaning was reduced, or why figures like Mary Magdalene were remembered, but redefined, because control does not require complete erasure. It only requires enough distortion to prevent recognition, and once recognition is gone, control becomes effortless. But the moment recognition returns, everything changes, because now you are no longer looking at the structure, you are seeing through it, and once you see through it, you cannot unsee it. And if something in you just clicked, if something felt familiar, like you weren't learning this for the first time, but remembering it, then you're ready for what comes next. Because in the next video, we go even deeper into the statement, "You are God's," and uncover what it truly means, beyond everything you've been told. Watch it now.